Hello and thank you for joining me on the Waters and Stanton video channel. My name's Peter Waters and my ham radio call sign is Golf 3 Oscar Juliet Victor. Just gone through Easter weekend. I had to take a friend into A&E. Then I went to a railway museum.
So I did say I was going to put a step on the other side. It's something I made it about 30 years ago.
And then on the day after Easter, Tuesday, I went down to Portsmouth to see my granddaughter off. She joined the Navy about a year and a half ago now, and she's on her first deployment. She was leaving Portsmouth on HMS Prince of Wales, the massive great aircraft carrier, and she's away for 8 months, would you believe, visiting Singapore, Japan, Australia, and a number of other places around the world. It's a world tour, but it's 8 months. She won't be back off that ship until December, so be interesting to hear her stories. Anyway, that was my weekend. Back here to ham radio. I've talked a lot about antennas on this channel, and I'm going to talk today about the unknown factor relating to HF antennas. You know, over the last 60 odd years I've used many HF antennas, majority of them home built, but I've used some commercial ones as well. I've had some very good results. Sometimes surprising results, sometimes surprising in a nice way, and sometimes surprising in a sort of disappointing way. Brian ZL3XDJ, who I've worked quite a few times, recently published a video about his antenna experiences, and he's always been in favour of vertical antennas down in New Zealand. They work very well for him. And he had some very good results, but in recent months, or perhaps I think towards the end of last year, he decided to raise his vertical antenna above ground. In other words, the radios weren't on the ground, they were elevated about 2 meters above the ground, and he was very impressed with the results he got. He also used the radials to form a directive array. There's been many suggestions in recent years that if you use perhaps 2 radials above the ground, they're as good as quite a few radials on the ground or buried in the ground. And if you swing those 2 or 3 radials in a given direction, then that enhances the performance of the antenna in that direction. And I know a number of stations have found that, and I found it myself as well, that if I create, as I did, a 20 meter vertical antenna and a couple of radials pointing long path, it worked very well. But although it gave me directivity, it didn't work as well as my horizontal dipole.
For me, changing over to the elevated vertical from the grounded vertical gave me an extra 1 to 2 S points all the time. Look, we had this radial here, we had 1 radial going long path compared to the 20 meter vertical that was on the ground back over there. Just this 1 vertical and 1 radial gave me 1 to 2 S points again. I did lots of tests with reverse beacon network, looking at SDR receivers around the world. Every one for about 3 weeks I did tests, and this antenna in this location just...
So a great example where location is a deciding factor.
So that poses the question, the unknown factor in HF antenna operation. You know, I'm sure that many of you watching this channel will have had the same experience as me, that you put an antenna up and you may get very good results and you're really encouraged. But those good results may be because the band conditions happen to improve that day. Or vice versa, you put a new antenna up and you're very disappointed, but it could be the band conditions have deteriorated. So we know that the best way to judge an antenna is over a period of time of regular operation. It's no good judging antenna just on one particular day. But there's also the factor that many stations have their favourite antennas. I myself, in recent years, have been very happy with my half-size G5RV antenna. It's a dipole, or doublet, if you call it a doublet, and it's, at the moment, has always been, in the last 2 or 3 years, about 28 feet above the ground, so there's no way that it's going to give low-angle radiation. And I know others have used end-fed half waves and been very delighted with them. Some say they don't work so well. There's an RSGB publication that actually says that an end-fed antenna is not a good idea. It causes interference and you get a lot of noise. Well, I think that's probably may have been the case perhaps many years ago, but in recent times, I know many of you have found that the end-fed half wave is the antenna for you. It's easy to erect and it gives good performance. There are others that swear by all sorts of different antennas that work extremely well, and I'm sure that when they say they work well, they mean they work well. They've got good results. As I say, Brian down in New Zealand gets very good results with his verticals. But I don't get the same performance that he gets with my vertical antennas. I find that my horizontal doublet at 28 feet gives me far better performance in almost all cases, including long path down to New Zealand, gives me far better performance than any vertical antenna I care to erect. And I've erected a number of vertical antennas over the years, all in this area, Essex. For those of you who are overseas, Essex is in the southeast of England. And I find that whilst the verticals do work, they don't work as well as horizontal antennas. And I also get the problem of noise, which I know a number of people will report, and we've covered this again, this topic on this channel, that if you have a vertical antenna, you do run the risk of getting more noise. But sometimes that's the only practical antenna that you can use. So if you can only put up a vertical, then you have to accept there's going to be a bit of noise, but it's better than not having an antenna at all.
Just a quick reminder that this channel is run by Waters and Stanton, ham radio store in the UK. We carry a wide range of products. Check our website, there's some great products there. We're forever changing it, and also some great offers.
So if you're a newcomer to ham radio, that's a bit of a problem for you, isn't it? What antenna do you put up? How do you know what is the best antenna for you? Well, there's been many attempts to model antennas, and there's modelling software around, and the modelling software is very good, it's very educational. Unfortunately, the free versions, which are the cut-down versions, are educational but not terribly accurate. And this really brings me on to the fact that is there an unknown factor in HF antennas, a factor that affects the performance, but a factor that is not thrown up through modelling, through continuity around the world. Some stations find one antenna better than the others. So is there a factor that we're missing? Is there a factor that actually means that one antenna will work good in one location but not so good in another location? Now we can talk about earth conductivity and so forth, and that clearly does have an effect. But I think there is something else, a factor that is peculiar to particular locations. Now it was mentioned to me after I did a couple of videos some months ago, that the magnetic field around the world varies. In some parts of the world it's horizontal, in some parts of the world it's vertical. Could that magnetic field actually affect the performance of an antenna, which makes one antenna better in a particular location, but not so good in another location? And I go back to Brian with his recent videos, where quite clearly he's getting very, very good results from vertical antennas. Now, Brian is located down the bottom of New Zealand, in the South Island. He's near the sea, but I don't think he's near enough, or I wouldn't have thought he's near enough to the sea to have a great effect. I'm guessing, I guess Brian is probably about a mile from the sea, maybe a bit less, I don't know. But nevertheless, is he getting benefit? Is there a benefit from being fairly near the sea? Or is there a benefit from having another particular geographical feature? We know that hills and mountains can be beneficial to ham radio stations. If you're in a mountainous area, sometimes the mountains will act as reflectors, and that is beneficial. I've been operated from Scotland, and I've experienced what I think is the benefit of mountains. But we can never be certain, can we? So the question to you, and you may want to comment on this, is there a factor? Is there a geographical factor? Or are there several geographical factors that make a particular antenna good for one location and not good for another? And how do we find that out? Is it simply trial and error? Why do I get very disappointing results with vertical antennas when somebody in New Zealand gets fantastic performance with vertical antennas? I mean, I'm not near the coast. I'm about 3 or 4 miles from the coast, so I would tend to think that being in that location, I'm not getting any assistance from the coast, but who knows? And are there different configurations of antennas that work better in one location compared with another? Again, I don't know, but I surmise that there is a factor that is unknown but does have an effect on antennas in many locations. It's a factor that you can't find out or can't determine by modelling software. Modelling software will give you a good idea of how the antenna will work, but it certainly won't give you the true idea. And if you try and model on an antenna and think, okay, this antenna is good or this antenna doesn't work, you may be going up a blind alley, because I bet there's plenty of people, plenty of experienced hams that may have used that antenna, used that same technique and found that it works for them, like Brian does with his radials in a given direction, and he's now got a reflector. And his vertical system continually puts out a very, very good signal into the UK and other parts of Europe. And also, what angle of radiation is being used? Do we really know what our angle of radiation is from our antenna when we're actually transmitting? You know, I see this thing about 5 degrees low angle radiation as if it's the Flat Earth Society. You don't need low angle radiation to work a lot of DX. And in fact, a lot of that so-called low angle radiation, which some of these cheap or free modelling software produce, is actually cancelled out. I can work DX with a dipole at 28 feet on 20 metres, and I get 5 and 9 plus results sometimes from Brian. There's no way that I'm using low angle radiation. We're probably relying on caudal hop for most of the contacts, and I think that caudal hop needs a medium angle, maybe 25 degrees, I don't know. It's impossible to know the actual angle of radiation that's working for you at a particular time. But it does mean to say that if we're setting up an HF antenna, there are going to be some surprises. There will be disappointments, but there will be surprises as well. And what works for you may not work for somebody else. And if somebody says that antenna doesn't work, it's rubbish, don't accept that. Because if other stations are using the same antenna and getting good results, it could be that you will get good results. The reason that antenna may appear to be rubbish to some people could be the unknown factor. And I put it to you that there is an unknown factor in HF antenna operation or design. Some antennas give good results in some locations. Some antennas give poor results in some locations. But there's probably not an antenna that gives superb results in all locations, given the fact we don't want to compare a 10-element Yagi at 100 feet with a dipole at 10 feet. That would be unrealistic. But I put it to you that there are occasions where a particular antenna works particularly well. And if you've found that antenna that works for your location, then stick with it. And be grateful that you've found the antenna that works, and you may have found the antenna that works with that unknown factor in your location. Anyway, I'm sure you've got some thoughts on this. I'm sure some people will say, oh, well, Peter, there is no unknown factor. I think there is. And I think that's part of the excitement of HF operation on the ham radio bands. Think about it. Let me have your comments. In the meantime, you enjoy your ham radio. You take care. And as usual, I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye for now.